You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, episode 592, Human Error.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Norman Lau. Each week on Mission Log, we explore a story in a fantasy simulation and figure out if the lessons can shed a little light on real-world morals, meanings, and messages. And we ask ourselves if it stands the test of time.
This week, Human Error, the one where 7 of 9 goes through an all-too-human process of living out a fantasy while finding that it has some repercussions when she gets back to work the next day. I'll be right back with trivia, but first, here's Norman with all the details on how to reach us.
We'd love to hear from you. Mission Log is a conversation about Star Trek. Find us on Facebook at Mission Log Pod and on Instagram and Threads at Roddenberry Podcasts. The conversation always continues in the Mission Log Discord with near-daily live events and 24/7 chat about the topics you love. Get your invitation to our private server by joining patreon.com/missionlog. While you're at it, one of the most important ways to help your favorite podcasts is to leave a 5-star rating and a review at Apple or your preferred podcast platform. And remember, your comments could be used on the show. And now here's John Champion with this week's trivia.
All right, here we go for Human Error. We have a story credited to Andre Bormanis and Kenneth Biller. And we saw Andre's name in the credits earlier this season with the teleplay for Nightingale. And here he shares that story credit with Ken, who most recently was credited on both parts of Workforce. Now, they got the story credit. We go up to the teleplay, and that is credited to Brannon Braga and Andre as well. And it's good to see Andre's name here again in writing the teleplay. Now, he said that he took this quite seriously. He wanted to explore themes of PTSD in the episode, and he's glad with the way that it turned out. And also, you may have noticed that we haven't seen Brannon's name on a teleplay since the very beginning of the season with Unimatrix Zero Part 2. It's appropriate that he would then have some input on this story since those two are connected. And Brannon had some interesting ideas about how this story would inform Seven's future, which, well, we can talk about later in the season. Don't want to give away everything now, but let's just say that the idea of a Borg glitch that could potentially cause harm, that was not an accident. Now, by this time, though, Brannon was working on getting Enterprise off the ground and considerably less involved in the day-to-day on Voyager. The episode is directed by Alan Croker, and we just talked about Alan's work on Workforce, and now we are at the penultimate of his episodes for Voyager before he makes the jump over to Enterprise as well. Now, Norman, this is one of those times where we get to keep the trivia pretty tight. Because when we look at guest stars, let me point your direction into the past few episodes where the production spend all that money on guest stars, just so many guest stars, one after another. Well, we're going to save some money this time by relying purely on our regular and recurring characters. So no guest stars for Human Error.
Welcome to the Delta Quadrant. There's fewer than 200 people on this ship. You can't swipe too far left.
Prologue. In her private practice room, 7 of 9 plays the piano. She appears changed. Her hair falls loose upon her shoulders. Her ocular and hand implants vanished. Her only companion is the metronome. Relentless, mechanical, exacting. Each tick demands flawless execution, a reminder that in pursuit of perfection, resistance is futile. Act 1. In Voyager's mess hall, the crew celebrates B'Elanna's and Tom's baby shower, with gifts ranging from logic puzzles to standard-issue diapers, and even a warm toast from Seven coaxed by Chakotay. For a moment, she seems integrated, much like at the piano. Her hair's loose, her Borg implants are absent, but reality intrudes when Janeway summons her to astrometrics. The holodeck fades, and Seven returns to duty in form and appearance. Voyager has entered a region where stray energy discharges, warned of danger. Janeway assigns Seven to analyze the readings while urging her to attend the real baby shower, despite her discomfort. Seven resists, retreating again to her holodeck refuge. There, she shows Neelix her new quarters, clad in her new Starfleet uniform. As he offers decorating advice, Chakotay arrives and gives her a traditional dream catcher. After Neelix departs, Seven, reading the moment well, banters with the holographic Chakotay and invites him to dinner. He accepts with charm. It's a date. Act 2. During her weekly checkup, and after and during the doctor's singing and his probing into her personal affairs, something seems off. A few minor physical abnormalities disturb Seven's otherwise near-perfect operational status. Returning to astrometrics, she and Tuvok conclude that the random energy discharges pose a genuine threat to Voyager's passage. Seven proposes creating a program to forecast these eruptions and allow timely course adjustments. After Icheb relieves her shift, Seven stops by engineering, not only to present B'Elanna a belated baby shower gift, but also to seek advice on personal style. Amused, yet intrigued, B'Elanna offers a few tips on cultivating a new look. Seven's uncharacteristic curiosity bewilders both B'Elanna and Harry before she retreats once again into her holodeck refuge. This time, her experiment and her appearance have evolved. When Chakotay arrives, Seven follows with care what she believes are proper social protocols. Yet as they begin cooking together, and whether or not that is a euphemism, both she and Holo Chakotay find themselves drawn into something far deeper than either anticipated, though only within the confines of fantasy. You must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh. Or so the saying goes. The question remains, do the fundamental things apply as Seven's holodeck time goes by? Act 3. Snapped from her fantasy by the real Chakotay, Seven is forced to confront the tension between illusion and reality, pulling her in unexpected directions. Leaving the warmth of Holo Chakotay and comfort of her simulation, she arrives late for her duty shift in astrometrics, a lapse both Chakotay and Icheb note as uncharacteristic of her flawless punctuality and efficiency. New data confirms Voyager has wandered into what appears to be a weapons testing range strewn with active warheads. After Chakotay assesses the situation and returns to the bridge, Icheb, ever diligent, reminds her of calibration duties. Instead of focusing, she lashes out, irritated by his precision and quiet judgment of her absenteeism. Escaping back into her holodeck refuge, she sits once more beside Holo Chakotay, who praises her piano playing. But he silences the metronome, urging her to feel the music, not merely perfect it. Her discomfort is not with the notes, but with the fear of stepping beyond rigid control into the uncertainty of emotion. Yet while she lingers in fantasy, the hours meant for safeguarding Voyager slip away. She had one job, to be the early warning system for Janeway and the bridge, and now the ship may pay for her negligence. Act 4. After returning to her post in astrometrics, Seven not only fails to initiate her early warning algorithm, but also delivers incomplete data to Tom as he maneuvers against another shockwave. Janeway and Chakotay notice the lapses, critical readings missing, reports delayed. Confronting her with cold, hard evidence, Janeway reveals the truth. Nearly 50 hours spent in the holodeck over 6 days while duty went neglected. Seven deflects, citing a personal experiment, but Janeway senses something deeper, an evasion more personal than professional. Back in astrometrics, Icheb dutifully explains how he has compensated for her missed detections. Seven, uncharacteristically terse with her protege, cannot disguise the strain. She is faltering, unable to balance fantasy with responsibility, and the cost is mounting for the ship and for the fragile connections she has begun to form with others. When she returns to her program, intent on ending her relationship with Holo Chakotay, her body betrays her. Weakness overtakes her, and before she collapses, she summons the doctor. The computer locates her in holodeck 2. He finds her unconscious on the floor. The simulation is still running. Terminating the program, he sees the truth. Her ocular implant is overloading, and there's the possibility that the damage could be much worse. Act 5. In sickbay, the doctor informs Seven that her cortical node nearly shut down, and only his intervention prevented permanent damage. She claims her activities were merely research, but he's already seen her simulation. Private quarters, a special dress, and a dinner with a holographic Chakotay. Reluctantly, she admits that emotional fragments from her experience in Unimatrix Zero left her unfulfilled, driving her to seek further introspection. The doctor praises her self-analysis, but Seven dismisses his sentiment, insisting they were distractions, inefficient fantasies she intends to delete. Suddenly, Voyager is pursued by a new subspace warhead locked onto its warp signature. Torpedoes fail, evasive maneuvers prove useless. At Janeway's order, Seven takes control, analyzing the circuitry and proposing a desperate solution: transport extraction of the detonator itself. Against impossible odds, she succeeds, and the missile crumbles harmlessly across the hull. Later, the doctor's diagnosis cuts deeper than the crisis. Her node is not malfunctioning, but designed, a Borg failsafe to suppress individuality by shutting down higher brain functions whenever emotions intensify. Surgery could remove the inhibitor, but Seven refuses, not out of fear of risk, but of reward. To her, efficiency must prevail over distraction. In the corridor, Chakotay invites her to join the crew for Neelix's latest cooking lesson. She declines, claiming she's lost interest. He encourages her to spend more time with the crew, but she walks away, her expression pained, marked by the quiet realization that to err is human. The end.
Nicely done. Nice tight recap.
Like a toy.
All the emotional highs and complicated lows, which we'll get into. That prologue, the teaser section, is super short. It's intriguing just because this is a version of Seven we've never seen before. She's playing Chopin, and wow. Yeah. Cool.
I haven't been keeping score, but we've mentioned a couple times that, there have been several really short cold opens. I'm wondering where this falls, in all of them. I'm sure someone out there has that information.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it's probably on Memory Alpha or something, and this is probably at least in the top 5 or top 3. Maybe it's the shortest. I don't know, but it is awfully
I heard the metronome ticking back and forth, and it kind of flashed me back to when I had to use metronomes for piano and violin, and there's something that they just kind of drive you, I was about to say forward, but mad at the same way,
Yeah. I remember various metronomes in various rehearsal situations or whatever, but we also, I think at home we had an electronic metronome as well. You switch it on and you could change the, the speed, the tempo, and that was cool stuff. In the holodeck baby shower, did holodeck Tuvok give Alana and Tom for the baby a Rubik's snake? Because that's kind of what it looked like.
I thought so too. I
had one of those in the 80s. Yeah.
I know that there are people out there that say, you know what, I wish I don't have to go to that wedding or don't have to go to that baby shower because I'm obliged to bring a gift. Yeah. But the thing is that I'm pretty sure that these gifts are replicated. So are they spending replicator rations on a baby's gift? Is that...
They might. Yeah. Tom can't have prime rib because, he's the one receiving the gifts in this case. But, you think about it, he can't get a replicator ration for somebody.
Here's the other thing. I just thought of this. If they don't like the gifts, can they just put them back in the replicator and come up with something else?
That's what I would do. And then get the dinner you wanted. Yeah, exactly. You catch Tom's joke after. So Neelix gives him the diapers, Starfleet's finest. And then you hear Tom say, it's kind of off camera. I guess we know who to call if there's a containment breach.
Uncle Harry. I'm wondering if, so in the background, as Roxanne is putting, showing the diapers off, Tom's Robbie is fumbling the Rubik's snake. I'm wondering if that was a conscious decision, a director's decision, or just an accident, a happy accident.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good question. Yeah, but it was a natural bit of business there, Really loved it. Seven requesting a uniform, and they didn't tip their hat early in this episode. Right. So the first time I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, okay, well this is where Seven is in her life. This is great.
Yeah, I think the only thing that, made you kind of, I guess, look at this particular scene a certain way, or the missing Borg implants, her ocular implant and her hand implant. It was a weird kind of exchange when Janeway says, well, now since your implants are gone, you might want to think about having children of your own one day. Because, without Borg implants, of course, the next logical step is pregnancy. Right.
First of all, still has Borg nanoprobes running throughout her bloodstream.
You think?
And Janeway's super presumptuous.
I'm just wondering, I know this probably should be held for discussion, but I'm wondering if everything that's happening in that holodeck scenario is exactly what she wants to hear.
Well, we're going to get into that. Because I've got a big question.
All right.
That we'll explore a bit. And of course, yes, the reveal here, it is a holodeck scene. And then I love her talking to holodeck Neelix, and he's saying, well, people decorate things. They put stuff around, like Harry has these, wooden knickknacks and stuff. And I like the idea of you use a replicator ration. I just need knickknacks. I need an ashtray from a Stuckey's. I need that little, the crab with the googly eyes that they make out of shells down in Florida.
Exactly.
You probably got some down there for me.
Googly eyes. That's like the best use of replicator ration, allowances, is to get googly eyes.
It really is.
Yeah.
Just put them everywhere. And I like her response to Neelix suggesting getting curtains. Like, give me some privacy. She's like, privacy? We're in space.
I know. You never know.
Yeah. And great. Chakotay shows up at the Dreamcatcher, and I guess his people just intensified in that moment.
I know this is kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but is Chakotay's gift a Dreamcatcher or a date catcher?
Whoa. What? Yeah, I don't think you're jumping ahead at all, because as soon as he comes in, they're cranking up the flirt.
His intentions intensify.
Yes, exactly. I love the Doctor saying, sleep, little warrior, as the Klingon lullaby, which reminds me a bit of a children's book narrated by Samuel L. Jackson, and the title of that book I cannot repeat on this show, but you can look it up.
I'm wondering, is there like a contractual obligation that allows Robert Picardo just to basically sing most of his lines? Is he like Elvis?
Might be, yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of like that. Ichab coming into Astrometrics, and a couple of times he drops the famous quotations, and there's, don't kill the messenger. But he's saying that he read Oedipus Rex, and I'm like, wow, Ichab, I'm not here to tell you how the rest of that story goes, but boy, are you in for something.
The question is, did he read it in the original Klingon? Because that's the way you're...
Yeah, really, exactly.
Speaking of Star Trek 6, so the whole thing with like Janeway telling Tom to turn Voyager into the wave, that reminded me of what Sulu was saying in Star Trek 6 with the Praxis wave.
Yeah.
Here's the meta thing. It would have been really cool if Tuvok suggested that.
He was there. Oh, God, that would have been so cool. Yeah. I love that we get two distinct Sevens in this episode. So I love her trying to socialize in real life now by giving a gift, belated, to B'Elanna for the baby, and then asking about the hairstyle. It's just so charmingly awkward and humorless. Therefore, there is humor.
Exactly. Exactly.
Great stuff. Cut to the holodeck then. And I love Seven in her inimitable Seven style, giving orders on how to chop vegetables.
How do you see microns? I mean, I understand Seven seeing microns.
Of course.
But Chakotay, how do you taste something? And, it's just, I don't want to skip ahead.
Okay. Now let's talk about the menu, though, because braised leeks is a starter. I love braised leeks. So great choice. I love rack of lamb. These are all great choices. Right. We don't know what's on the dessert menu. Okay, but why is Chakotay chopping like 3 pounds of carrots? Because she did not mention carrots. And look, you can do without.
She also didn't mention dessert, so maybe carrot cake?
Oh, God, like 3 pounds of carrots. and part of Chakotay's turn.
Chakotay's thumb cake. That is not good. Okay.
Yeah. But here's the thing. When you start tasting salt off of each other's fingers, there's only one direction the rest of that scene can go.
Awkward.
So, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the thing is,
that is exactly how it can go.
It's a very, very awkward setup. Like, I know they are both professional actors. I grant you that.
Yeah.
It's just, there's something like, okay, do you remember that scene in Back to the Future when Lorraine in the car, she tries to make out with, Marty or Calvin Klein, right?
Yeah, Calvin,
and
right.
she says, like, the way I feel when I kiss you, it feels like I'm kissing my brother. That's what it feels like when I watch that scene, right?
Yeah. Well, and I guess you have to ask yourself, is it because you have an awkward 7 of 9 and you have a holodeck construct of Chakotay? So is it because of that? Because of the in-universe, or is it because as a viewer it's also hard to separate, oh no, that's 7 of 9 and Chakotay, who are two characters I have grown to know and understand?
Kind of both. I mean, because there's something like weird about the whole "you're beautiful when you're chopping," because that's like Chakotay for my flirtation intensifies, right? Because I can see like Chakotay was like that, with Janeway, and not like that obviously with 7, because he's not real. But Beltran can pull that off. He has that kind of swagger. It's just weird here.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. I love this creepy dream sequence. So Alan Croker directed this one. I could very much see like a David Livingston shooting that sequence, some fisheye and weird streaky lighting effects in there. Very good stuff. And also just patently creepy waking up next to Holo Chakotay and then having to go to work with the real thing. Should we give him a new name? I'm thinking Holote.
Holote. Oh, yeah.
Holote is Holo Chakotay. Yeah.
Yeah, I dig it. Let's do it.
Okay. All right.
We'll need a Discord icon for that, an emoji for that.
Right.
I like the Borg green lighting because it's very shorthand for Borg. I dig kind of like the circuitry behind the metronome. So this is Michelin trademark techno metronome.
Ooh.
So I like to do that.
That's good.
Remember, folks, Seven's loose hair, when her hair is disheveled, it's shorthand for something's wrong with her.
Yeah. But she's gotten really good and really fast at taking it down and putting it on. Because that has to happen multiple. She's efficient in this episode. Yeah. Better late than never. Bestial. It is. But he gets to play it straight. Like, no, this is like literally better late than never. And you can't fault him there. Of course. And I love 7, though, with the "you're relieved." Also, Starfleet 4 dismissed. Also, Starfleet 4 get out. And again, we're going to come back to it, but I just love seeing Jerry play 7 in the holodeck so differently from Jerry from 7 in real work life. We'll definitely be doing more discussing. And again, a little neglect of duties, but we'll get into that.
The holodeck can do that, though. I mean, that's not untraditional for holodeck use in Star Trek. It has we waylaid many a Starfleet officer.
There's a long and storied
Breaker
of Starfleet officers who got maybe a little sidelined in the holodeck. But here's the thing: what Riker didn't have is he didn't have to answer to Janeway.
True.
And nothing scares me more than having to answer to a disappointed Janeway. And then 7 actually lying about why her work was taking so long. This is heavy stuff.
Here's the interesting thing about that. Not that Janeway knows or letting on that she knows, but it's this romantic triangle now that's being created between 7 on one side, Janeway on the other side, Chakotay not necessarily in the middle, but Holo Chakotay's feelings, or 7's feelings for him in the middle, which is like, okay. Yeah. But the thing is that you're not walking around and saying like, oh, Janeway's like, oh, I'm going to clock 7 clocking Chakotay walking in and out of the bridge with her, with a smile or a smirk or some kind of reaction, So does she really know what's going on, or does she just know, like, she's lying to me?
She knows there's a lie, but yeah, interesting. When we catch up with Holote again, he comes back into the holodeck, into Seven's quarters, and he says that he smuggled flowers out of the aeroponics lab. And I wonder, like, is that the kind of thing that the real Chakotay would do? And that's the kind of thing that's easy to catch. Right? So I don't know if that's the best idea. And by the way, something that 7 of 9 does not understand is how to actually set the mood for a breakup.
Yeah. I love shipping like this. So it's Holote, or does Chicologram work?
Chicologram. That's great. Oh, these are both great. Okay.
Let's put it to like a poll on Discord, on whatever social media. Holote versus Chicologram. Listeners, let us know. The thing is that it's too bad this, like, Holote, does he know or does he not know about his stash of Antarian cider?
Oh, right.
Because that would have been, maybe that could have, like, stopped the whole, breakup from happening. Little Antarian cider goes a long way.
Could be. Next chapter. Yeah. So I love fake Chakotay, Holote, Chicologram getting the real talk from 7. But here's the thing. That's the holodeck computer that is running this simulation and is giving it right back to 7 by speaking some truth. And I wonder, like, is that a glitch? Or is that the computer just, like, putting its foot down, going, no. We're being sincere here. Well,
that goes into a discussion that we've had multiple times off air about ChatGPT. Aggregate all of this data. That's the way the computer would aggregate all the data of Chakotay. Every single thing that he said, his logs, the way he behaves, everything that the computer has collected, and then turns it into this, into this facsimile of Chakotay. So is he?
He's laying it on. He's laying it on. Right. Yeah. Great reveal with the Doctor discovering that Chakotay is actually part of the simulation. Love that whole moment. And I love tying this whole thing back to Unimatrix Zero with, her just very innocently saying, I wanted to feel those emotions again. That gave that episode much more impact. Very cool.
So 7 says to the Doctor, I've been conducting simulations to explore different aspects of my humanity. So I have to ask, simulations or stimulations? Am I right?
Am I right? Oh, yeah, you're right. You ain't wrong. Yeah. It's a little weird. They had to cram in all the technobabble and explodey stuff into the last act. And it's just so apparent, like, okay, we've only got a few minutes. Please put in more effects, ramp up the music, make something blow up.
I still love that circular star chart in front of 7's console. It's the same thing that I pointed out in Repentance. Yeah. It's just really cool. I'm not sure if it's a graphic or painting or what, but I dig it. It's just something neat. Maybe they should have stuck that on her wall.
Hey, there we go. Or a painting of that on her wall. Yeah, I like that idea. I do like the solution of just, beaming the warhead out, because there are all these stories, of course, from, wars of the past of a torpedo that is mistimed and then just hitting its target. Sometimes missing the target altogether, but hitting the target and not exploding. Famously, the RMS Olympic didn't even realize that they had been hit until they saw the dent later. And that could have been a German torpedo that would have taken out that ship, but nope, just kept on going.
So this is why I love your deep analysis. Like, you bring up history, I'll bring up Red October.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Hunt for Red October is part of our important cultural history. Yes.
Yes. But when 7 brings up the warhead frequency, she says 4.84 megahertz, and it's not 4.74.
Oh, it should have been.
It's kind of like, how do you like this, Borg? Rotating frequencies that prevent the torpedo from being accessed. Oh, doesn't that sting?
Yeah.
The Scorpion.
What an interesting, tragic reveal here at the end. The Borg programming shuts down when a drone starts feeling strong emotions. The Doctor lays it out logically. sadly, but logically. And this line that he says, finding one's heart is the surest road to individuality. Thought that was a nice poetic. I don't know if we chalk that up to Brannon or to Andre, but great.
I love that. I also love that there's the potential that this could be a YouTube video of some kind. Talaxian tenderloin in 10 minutes. Fans out there, go.
Yeah, absolutely. Make it happen. And oh man, just when I thought we were done, just when I thought we had maybe resolved this, now are we getting set up for flirty Chakotay in real life? Is it Chakotay IRL laying on the charm here? Does he know about the hologram? Because if it's just more sad now if Seven will literally die if she is too happy. But then it is Chakotay, so maybe we are not risking that. We'll get right back to human error after a quick reminder about the Mission Log listener survey.
Hey, Mission Log listeners, this is it. We're down to the wire. The Roddenberry Podcast listener survey closes October 10th, and if you haven't filled it out yet, now's the time.
This is your chance to shape what's next for Mission Log as we prepare to head into Enterprise and grow Roddenberry Podcast. We want to hear your feedback on the shows, Discord, on our YouTube plans, all of it.
And yes, we're saying thank you in style. When you complete the survey, you'll get a secret code that unlocks your entry into our giveaway for a TOS film cell plaque, an actual 35mm frame from the cutting room floor. No two are alike.
Now, these are rare, limited edition collectibles, and multiple winners will be taking one home. It's like owning a literal frame of Star Trek history.
The survey takes just a few minutes. The link is in the show notes. And again, the deadline is October 10th.
And hey, while you're at it, if you want even more ways to stay involved, our Patreon community is always growing. That gets you into our private Discord where the conversation is thoughtful, welcoming, very often hilarious.
So complete the survey, enter to win, and help guide the next 5-year mission. That link again is right there in the notes.
Let us know what you think, and good luck.
Before you start licking anyone's fingers in the holodeck, you'd better make sure the cannibalism safeties are working. How embarrassing would that be?
All right, Norman, you mentioned it a moment ago that 7 of 9 is perhaps not the first Starfleet officer to get waylaid, sidelined in the holodeck. And let me refer you back. You mentioned Riker, of course. Mm-hmm. Let me mention somebody else, old friend of the show, old friend of this show in particular, Voyager, not just TNG, Reg Barclay. When we first met him, it was all about getting sidelined on the holodeck in Hollow Pursuits. But let's look at this in relation to Barclay and 7 of 9. So definitely some similarities here. Both of them, they find this privacy in the holodeck to play out this idealized version of themselves, right? And they both have created their own crewmates, which is a little creepy, a little weird, but they're more manageable that way, right? Mm-hmm. And both get lost in the fantasy, so they're not focusing on work like they were before necessarily. And in both cases, you can kind of raise this question of the healthy line, maybe, between coping, like using this as a psychological tool to learn, to explore, and then what's just a dangerous distraction? What is just escapism that ultimately leads to something else? So now, but these stories are told in very different ways. And if you think about it, Barclay, his journey is about the pathology of what's going on. He is truly getting lost there. And the people on the Enterprise make fun of him. And the fantasies are played out in this cringy, weird, he's got characters kind of designed for his crewmates. 7, we're handling her story with a bit more dignity, a bit more empathy. we're allowing her space to figure something out for herself. And I wondered why are these two stories that are similar, are they also treated so very differently? And I thought, well, okay, we've got Seven here whose backstory we understand a lot better. We understand that the Borg took away her social and emotional development, so she's not had a chance to do that on her own at all in any sort of really meaningful way. She joins Voyager, she becomes quote-unquote human, and then immediately gets thrown into work. and we've seen how hard it is for her to socialize just naturally, right? I think she's also seen as tough and competent. She's not seen the way that Barclay is, in this kind of creepy way, you know? But there's also something about the types of fantasies that they are both playing out. Seven is doing something that in her mind she thinks will make her better. How do I be my best, most complete self? Having not had the benefit of learning this throughout my life. So there's an awareness there that's really nice to see. Whereas Barclay is more trying to force people into a controllable game that he can play, where really, you know, there are no stakes because he's always going to win, because the characters will always ultimately do what he is programmed to do. But Seven here gets a few surprises, you know? So what do you make of that? I mean, I don't really think of these episodes as bookends of each other, but there are interesting parallels. And we could also bring in, you know, Booby Trap with the hologram version of
Dr. Leah Brahms.
Dr. Leah Brahms, yeah. And there's something that goes back to what you brought up as well, which is Geordi created this version of Leah Brahms, but then the computer takes over and starts making that Leah Brahms fit Geordi's expectation.
Correct.
Which I'll come back to in a moment, because I have some thoughts about holodeck on that. But anyway, there's your first topic to chew on.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much a Star Trek trope, for lack of a better word, where we see the holodeck being used for this very specific purpose, where a fantasy or fantasies are played out. Minuet with Riker, Dr. Leah Brahms, you know, with obviously, you know, Geordi, and then you mentioned, you know, Reg, and, you know, his situations that we've seen not only in the past, but like recently here in Voyager, or anyone that really delves into like the holodeck fantasy. We talked about, you know, Janeway's issues with that kind of that personal connection that she needs to make with her Irish beau, you know, in Fairhaven.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So a lot of these, you know, these examples are very self-serving. And I'm not saying that Seven's isn't, but what I find a little bit more interesting with her exploration as a scientific tool is that we are set up to understand that this is a more of an experiment than it is for a personal or sexual, you know, or emotional pursuit per se. The metronome is very specific in the opening, or the cold open, I should say, of this episode, because what she's doing is that she's trying to do what she always does with every pursuit that we've seen her entertain in Voyager, and that is to perfect that pursuit, perfecting cooking, perfecting certain things. Now, obviously her job, she wants perfection in that. So, but the thing is that that's not what emotions are necessarily about. You can't perfect something that's as volatile as your ability to be able to control this or that emotion. The Vulcans, you know, very interesting way of looking at it. But this is where I believe this is a pun I wrote. I hope you appreciate this.
Oh, please. I love them all.
But this is Seven. And the way I wrap up kind of like where she is right now in this episode is I am 16 going on 7 of 19. Right?
Yes. For all you musical theater fans out there, we know you're there in our audience. Yep.
Because, like, for all intents and purposes, and we've talked about this on Discord before, that Seven is entering a very interesting time in her life that she has been robbed of. You mentioned this before, that 20 years of her existence, that was taken from the Borg. or by the Borg from her. So when Annika ceased to be and became 7 of 9, that put her in a very stunted emotional growth of her own biology, sexuality, understanding of who she is as a person, as a human being. So during this particular awakening that she has experienced through Unimatrix Zero, through Axum, and I'm so glad that they actually brought up Unimatrix Zero, because up until that point, I'm like, what is she doing?
Yeah, no, you could not.
Doing here?
Yeah, you could not have this episode without that reference. This would have been a total bomb. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a very specific, very good reference. And I hope that was the idea behind this episode, behind Human Error, to bookend Unimatrix Zero, because without that awakening from Axum, that emotional awakening, that's maybe that sexual awakening, and remembering who she was in that space, then who is she? Like, where does she go from here? But it has given her a taste of what it is to be more human. And I do believe that, even though I don't necessarily accept the puzzle pieces fitting together, Chakotay makes a lot of sense when it comes to who she would gravitate towards in terms of this male focus in her life. I mean, Chakotay is kind. He's intelligent. He has authority. He's charming. And he has interacted with Seven to the point where he's encouraged her to be more an integrated person in the crew. Now, if you have those conversations with somebody at a certain age or a certain vulnerability in your life, some people call that being led on. Some people call that becoming infatuated with perhaps emotions or feelings or a maturity level that is beyond your understanding at the time. The Police have written that, probably one of the most famous songs about it, Don't Stand So Close to Me. Young Seven, a subject of this program's fantasy, or Chakotay is. So that's where I see her exploration of this part of our identity not being as abusive as, say, like the other characters that we've talked about regarding the holodeck itself.
Well, that's what is so great about the idea of the holodeck here, is that we're actually seeing it used as a kind of therapeutic tool almost. This is a safe space, literally, for her to work out these ideas, to try to figure out, well, what does this emotion feel like? And look, she has a very limited sample size of people in her life anyway. So you kind of answered it for me. Why gravitate toward Chakotay? Well, remember, he is a gentle man. So there is a kind of safer masculinity there, which is, it makes sense, at least for the story. And again, we're just talking about Holo Chakotay here. And
that's stuck with us since the very beginning when he said that. Yeah. We have brought that up so many times, but it was such a weird, very specific scene. Yeah. Referring to him as that.
But I think here's where it gets really interesting. So Holo Chakotay is informed by the computer's knowledge of the real Chakotay. Yes. But it is 7 of 9 who set up this program. And this program has very specific things in it. It has her ability to go to a party. It has her quarters. It has Neelix come in and give her decorating tips. And the only person who has showed up for a dinner date is Chakotay, not somebody else. Okay, not even just a made-up character, not even, say, a construct of, oh, look, it's Axum coming by to visit Voyager. He made it out of the Beta Quadrant. But we have Chakotay here. And there are a few things that I thought. One is, okay, did she program him deliberately? And if she did, what does that say about her emotional focus and about her real life connection potentially with this person? But if she didn't, if this is something the computer determined, if this is an automated part of the storytelling that the holodeck can do, that gets really interesting too. Did the holodeck choose Holo Chakotay as a suitable person to explore this part of her desires? Is it drawing from interactions that they have had before? And is it, in essence, leading her in a way that the computer thinks might help her evolve? Go to that conversation. Go to the breakup conversation. She can't handle it anymore. She's literally getting ill and about to get fired from her. They're not going to fire her, but she's getting reprimanded from her job. But Holo Chakotay is the one who fights back. It's like, you can't do this. You're missing out. You're not going to be a complete person, blah, blah, blah. With this thing that we have is good. He's saying all the things. And I would say, and look, I can't quote it verbatim right here, but in my recollection of that scene, pretty normal stuff. Something that somebody who reasonably has feelings for another person would say. And again, it's like, is the computer now letting her experience that part of a relationship because it is good for her, to make her reconsider?
I'm wondering, like, are there safety protocols when it comes to emotional manipulation with the holodeck program? Because that's, how far does he go?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. We only see a portion of that scene. We only see, however many, several seconds of that. I don't know if I would go so far as to call it manipulation. I think it's a natural reaction. If you're getting broken up with, and this is a surprise to you, and you're trying to find, well, wait a minute, how do we get here? How do we get back to where we were? I think the things that he's saying are reasonable to understand. There might be pieces of that dialogue that I'm missing or forgetting, but I think there would have been huge red flags if he was saying stuff that I felt like were specifically manipulating her into a position that she didn't want.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of, I don't know, what kind of parameters she put into the holodeck simulation, but what if she basically said, make it as real as possible? So the computers, it's the manipulation is on the computer end, not necessarily Chakotay. Chakotay is just basically being created algorithmically in the way that all of the data that has been turned into this program represents a very sincere, very honest reaction that Chakotay would have. But also that begs the question, kind of like at the end of this episode, we do see an example of Chakotay being that way. He's trying to encourage her to be more interactive and integrated with the crew. He's like that with everybody. It's like, that's why I love his, when they write the character right, when they write Chakotay right, he's really about making sure that the crew's emotional needs are taken care of, because without the crew, without the team, there's no dream. Right. Right.
Well, I think the other thing that's really cool here is the glimpse into Seven's perception or her idealized version of herself. So we kind of have to ask how much of this is just her, like in all these times she's been in the regeneration chamber or it's been quiet in astrometrics. How much of this has she just kind of thought about, fantasized about? Like, what if I looked a different way? What if I had my own place? What if I had a romantic relationship with somebody? Because that thing back in Unimatrix Zero, that felt good. And I want more of that. So I wondered, and I'm going to bring up the metronome again. You're talking about Seven's desire for perfection and almost learning, it's the letter of the law, necessarily more than the spirit of the law here.
Sure,
and her experience. Okay. I think there's an ambiguity around her early actions that we see in the holodeck. That first time that Chakotay drops by. Look at her reactions to Chakotay the first time we see him, right when he interrupts Neelix in her holodeck quarters, right? Her body language, her reactions, they all change when he comes in. She's smiling. She's making this kind of eye contact. She seems at ease in a way that we didn't really see her before. And of course, she doesn't have her Borg implants. Her hair is down. She has this more human look, which again is her sort of projected version of herself. Right. But in these moments, like when she's playing piano, and again, look at their facial expressions between the two of them, but especially hers. And it left me wondering, is this Seven's real desire, or is this running the experiment? if she knows if I react this way, this will bring about this type of reaction from him. This furthers the game. This furthers the emotional exploration. So is it a quote unquote programmed response from her? Or at that point, does it even matter because the holodeck computer is good enough? It will just keep the game going.
Well, that brings up a really interesting point. And I think that it's a little bit more genuine than we are actually describing it, or we are led to believe, because there isn't a parameter that stops the program from running when her duty assignments dictate.
Oh, yeah. Or when she's physically hurt by the implant. Yeah.
So, she lets time slip by her. She basically becomes a completely different person because of how invested she is in the reality of the program, i.e. her emotions. Because if this was just an experiment, experiments have goals, parameters, milestones, breaks. She's like, I have to be on duty because I created this program that's supposed to keep us safe from these warheads, and I need to be back at astrometrics at a certain time.
Yeah.
But she is so personally and emotionally invested in the reality of the program that she loses track of time. That is a very significant indicator of this is actually working. This is distracting her from the efficiency, the precision, the dedication, of her job. She's like, because before it's all about, this is Seven. She is so good at her job. No one else can be as Borg-like efficient as her. Maybe Tuvok, maybe.
Right.
But because she's actually falling in love, because she wants to explore these deeper emotions, because she wants to know what it's like to work without the metronome, to risk, to do all of that, to put her heart out there with the potential of being broken. That's real.
Yeah.
It's real to her.
Yeah.
And it's certainly real to Janeway's clock.
Well, that's the thing. The experience is real, whether or not the cause that got you there is quote unquote real. Look, if we wanted to go on for another hour, we could talk about how that relates to modern day AI as a tool, and how, look, people go on to, ChatGPT to, I don't know, write ads for a podcast, which is pretty easy to do, but there are other people in this world who have been using that as a kind of replacement therapist, and which comes with a whole host of pitfalls, especially in a technology that is in its infancy like that. But you can ask, okay, is that just sort of dragging the human component along, just to keep them engaged in the game? I'm putting that in finger quotes, but to stay engaged in the interaction, as it were.
Let me ask you one question. It doesn't have, this is more of a rhetorical question. It doesn't have to be answered right now. But have you had an experience of visual reality or virtual reality experience that has been so intense that you've completely lost track of time to the point where someone had to pull you out of that experience to say, hey, you are neglecting your responsibilities?
Ooh, okay. No, but I can fully understand that, because, look, even in the simplest way, it's easy to lose track of time, looking at your phone, looking at YouTube videos or whatever, and then suddenly an hour goes by, suddenly 2 hours go by, and that is not good. VR, the weirdest thing that I've done is sort of taken the headset off in my home office and then completely turned around and then disoriented, wait, what happened? But at least I was pretty aware of time. But I can see how you extrapolate a little further and a little further and a little further, and somebody's got to come get you to get out.
The holodeck may have its own power source, but thankfully it has access to the entirety of human knowledge on social customs, or it might have interpreted baby shower very differently.
Well, we have come to the end of human error, and by no error of our human own error, or lack thereof, we are doing what we do at the end of every mission log episode. We look at the episode in total, take a look at our observations, take a look at our discussion, and kind of boil it all down to answering our mission log mission statement. Does this episode hold up? Does it withstand the test of time? And then we will get into what kind of morals or meanings or messages, or all of them, the triple M's, as we say, did we pull out of this episode that inspiring to us, and hopefully not in any way, shape, or form of an error on our part. So here we are, John. Human error. We're pretty much deep in the back half of Voyager season 7. And where does this episode sit with you? How does it sit with you?
Yeah. I think, we've had some very good episodes a lot of very good episodes this season that we have said really you could place them anywhere. Maybe some of those even belonged a little earlier in the run, like a season 3. But this is one that I'm glad we're getting when we're getting it. It seems well placed in season 7. We need to push 7 of 9's character just a little bit further, figure out what else there is there, and what will her future journey into humanity be like. This actually sets us up with some kind of bad news at the end, so I have to see how that plays out. But it gives us something intriguing about how she is seeing her future as a human. As an episode on its own, I gotta say it's a bit clunky. Because they shoehorned in this space action stuff with a warhead and subspace anomaly weapon stuff that I couldn't follow and didn't care about at all. I just didn't care. And I wondered if they thought like, oh, well, the 7 of 9 story, it's a little too emotional. It's a little too serious. So we can't just rely on that. So it feels like that B plot is just tacked on for the pretense of having a ticking clock and an explosion. That's too bad. But that said, I love what we get to explore about 7's mind, her personality, her perception of herself, and her inner life through this episode. Just seeing her navigate what it means to her to be more human is a fascinating idea anyway. And even when you pair that alongside the real world version of what's happening in the story with Tom and B'Elanna's baby shower, all of that stuff has resonance and meaning for what we get out of 7. Even though we don't see the real baby shower, just the idea that she is aware of it, she's in her holodeck version of it, and then has to make good later by bringing the gift. Like, all of those things interact in a way that makes those little details very satisfying. And again, like we said before, just the reference back to Unimatrix Zero, and that this is something that had impact and meaning for her. Being able to revisit that, really smart, really satisfying. So is it a perfect episode? No, but it is so easy for me to forgive those flaws because what we get out of the character drama here is so good. And again, Jerry Ryan gets to give 2 performances. It is the 7 of 9 who is failing at work, and it is also the 7 of 9 trying, like rehearsing these new types of interactions for her in the safety of the holodeck. And I just think from a high concept sci-fi idea, it's really interesting that you have this tool in the technology that can be used that way, but also on this very personal level, it's saying, hey, what can we do here with somebody who is trying to understand and better balance their own emotional inner life?
Yeah.
That is a great bit of storytelling. So yes, it does hold up, even though there are things that I would want to change, but they didn't ask me. So what do you think, Norman?
I know this will probably fly in the face of a lot of Voyager fans out there when I say what I'm going to say. But the thing is, when I watch this episode, or pretty much when you watch any episode, the way that we watch episodes for Mission Log, we have to find the answer in all of what we're saying and see if it stands up to our mission statement. Does it hold up? Does it withstand the test of time? Because, we say this, as the kids say it, sometimes things hit differently in different periods of your life, especially when these things are aired or when you see them for the first time as they are being aired. And okay, so this is I think it was March 7th. This is 2001, right? And we're getting close to the end of Voyager's 7th season. So I'm sure that there are fans out there at that time saying, this is what we're getting? Like, why aren't we getting this other thing? And as I'm watching it here in 2025, I'm like, this is a really interesting story to tell. Because right now, in a lot of the storytelling that I've been watching recently, either within our fandom or outside of our fandom, there's a certain callousness, there's a certain bitterness, there's a certain, in the serialization of all of these stories, there's just something that's missing that, Star Trek of Voyager's era just offers, and that's wholesomeness. Focusing on a character and letting that character have the ability to breathe and to embrace the nuance of the character and the quality of the writing that goes on with this type of a story. Jerry Ryan has been given the runway to actually, showcase her ability as an actor. And like you said, twice over with 2 different really specific types of performances here. And that's what you want to watch. You want to watch this character inhabit not just the character that we know, but the character that's being explored. And rarely do we get a chance to see that today because everything is either so truncated or so overproduced that the characters in the middle get lost. That's what I like about this episode. It came out of very left field, way out of left field when it comes to being in the D, where they take Chakotay, and I'm sure JC shipper fans who are saying, what are you doing with our character? What are you doing with Chakotay? Because yes, it is a hologram programmed character, holographic, designed to, evoke certain responses out of 7. But at the same time, though, it's weird. Let's be honest. It's just straight up weird. It should have been Axum, right? Yeah. Because we're talking about Unimatrix Zero, and if we're going to capstone that episode, you got to bring in Axum, because that's the reason why she fell in love in Unimatrix Zero outside of her Borg identity in the first place, right? So, sure, you can make kind of like specific points and point fingers at, that the chopping vegetables sequence was really awkward. Even like them kissing to end close out, I think it was like Act 2 was awkward. A lot of awkward stuff going on with that relationship.
They should have been chopping broccoli.
Chopping broccoli.
Yeah, they should have been doing
exactly.
That. Yeah.
But, it is what it is. I understand that people will bristle about it. I didn't, because I'm not invested in that way with, Janeway and Chakotay. Obviously, their relationship, their chemistry is far better than what we're seeing here, but it's being done so in a very specific way to explore Seven's character. So I give that a pass. I think that it's acted well. Again, it's lit well. It's produced well. The special effects are amazing. All this kind of stuff. It's just strange that for me, that we're going in this direction, knowing that there isn't an extension to Voyager, i.e. a spin-off of Voyager, because we're going to be going into Enterprise. So where are they really taking us with the story when there are like 8 episodes left? Right. 2 of which are the finale in 2 parts. So what are they trying to tell us?
Right. Well, let's talk about what they're trying to tell us, because I think there are some, maybe not morals here, but at least some ideas, some messages, some meanings, as it were. And I walked away with a couple here. We like to talk about how Star Trek's aliens are always us. So any attribute that we're exploring in an alien species is always about humanity, the human condition. So we talk about Vulcans in Star Trek. They're kind of this superhuman species because they can suppress all the messy, difficult emotions, and they can channel their energy into logic and discipline. Just look at Tuvok with a Tommy gun. So because Star Trek's aliens represent humanity in their own way, Vulcans they're kind of aspirational. Well, if only we could turn off that nasty emotion for a moment and just think things through logically. If only the people around us could turn off that emotion for a minute and just think logically. Imagine how much better we'd be. But real human emotions are unpredictable. They're unstable. They're illogical. And sometimes they're overwhelming. And yet they are essential to what it means to be human. We keep seeing that over and over and over again in Star Trek. Now, with this episode, Star Trek gives us 2 very different kinds of tragedy Now, the Vulcan tragedy is where someone won't embrace their emotions. That's what makes Spock stand out, because he actually does. He breaks through, right? And now with Seven, the tragedy is someone who can't embrace their emotions, not without it literally harming her. Her biology will reject the thing that she most desires, which is connection and vulnerability and intimacy, to have that ultimately human experience. Now, switching gears here a little bit. So the Doctor has this nugget of wisdom for Seven. He says, well, you have to find the right balance between work and recreation. It's good advice, but it's a bit oversimplified when the emotional terrain is so new and so difficult and so overwhelming for somebody like Seven. But there's something that's so relatable about Seven's journey here. And we've barely touched on it. We've barely said the word in our discussion today. And yes, people in our audience who are much more knowledgeable about neurodiversity, they are going to have some very insightful things to say. And I look forward to that conversation a lot, because that is a whole other episode of Mission Log that we could get into about how this parallels that experience as well. But even before we get to labels or diagnoses, this is just human. All of these human moments that she has, trying to understand your place in a social world, figuring out what kind of friend or coworker you want to be and what you want out of those other people. Overthinking a gift because you're not sure if it's right. Yeah, that hits home. And how about this one, feeling something for someone and not knowing what to do with it? Now, maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but I think a lot of us have been in that space, trying to figure out how to be seen and understood without feeling exposed or inadequate. And human error doesn't give us easy answers, but it reminds us that the attempt, the trying, is as human as anything else. What do you got, Norman?
I know that we don't read each other's notes before we get to this final segment, but you and I are on very similar pages. And I think that that's a credit to the episode itself, because I think it's very clear in what it's trying to say. I mean, at the heart of this episode asks a very profound question. It's like, what does it mean to pursue humanity when biology, culture, politics, religion, circumstances stand in the way? In this case, the Borg's, their programming and their cortical node. Seven, she's tragic in this episode because she's trying to create this connection. She's trying to understand what this means to be able to put herself out there and understand humanity from a very new and more deeply satisfying level that was unlocked in her during the Unimatrix Zero experience. And she's being punished for it, by her biology, technically. Or I would say the implants that were put into her to curb that biological urge. So she doesn't want to give up on that, but it literally hurts her when she tries to become more human. So what is that going to do to her, right? Is it going to basically say to her and prove to her that it's not worth the risk? Or is it worth risking because I can't live my life at the cadence of a metronome anymore? Because that's not what life is about. And being on board Voyager, she's seeing it time and again, how relationships affect the quality of these people's lives. Not just following protocol, not just following orders, not just following all of these tenets of Starfleet, but using her human experience to be able to filter that through what is essentially the right or human thing to do. I mean, she is like straddling this interesting double existence right now, because she has the perfection of her job performance that identifies her. And then there's this need, this very much specific and very understandable, relatable desire to connect with someone in a very specific way. You have to be able to come to terms with what you're saying, to be able to understand the moment for what it is. That's that moment she had with Chakotay. Actually, two moments. The first time when Chakotay and Seven had that very passionate physical embrace. And secondly, and most importantly, when Chakotay said, let go of the metronome and play with passion. Risk the ability to be able to get out of that structure and play. Invest yourself in the emotion of what's happening. because that is how you actually achieve getting closer to this quote unquote humanity that she's seeking. In a pursuit of humanity, Seven risks becoming the opposite of being human in a way because she's striving for perfection. Let's look at the way that she misinterpreted the Omega particle, right? She thought she would see perfection there, but it wasn't what she wanted. And she doesn't understand that that kind of perfection, it's not that it's unobtainable. It's just not how humanity works. The Borg nature wants perfect, flawless perfection, but it's lifeless. It's meaningless, right? Life isn't designed to be perfect. Life isn't designed as a performance metric. It's about falling. It's about picking ourselves up. It's about getting messy, and it's about not resisting passion. Because that to the Borg is futile. That to humanity is exactly what humanity needs to drive itself forward. Now, being philosophical and all of that aside, I haven't done this in a while, John, but I would be remiss if I didn't close my thoughts without a nod to Rush.
Yeah, there we go. Haven't had that in a while. Yeah. Yeah.
Their song Prime Mover is one of my favorites because I pick different lyrics at different times to relate to different episodes. Prime Mover's from Hold Your Fire. And this set of lyrics mirrors Seven's journey in a way. Being human isn't about achieving perfection. It's about the daring to love, to risk, to live. As Rush says, basic elemental instinct to survive stirs the higher passions, thrill to be alive. Alternating currents in a tide water surge, rational resistance to an unwise urge. Anything can happen.
Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog for early access to shows and the Mission Log Discord. Our website is missionlogpodcast.com, and for more Star Trek news and discussion, visit trekmovie.com.
On the next Mission Log, Q2.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com. Special thanks to consulting producers, Matt Esposito, Tom Kozak, Mike Richards, Mike Schabel, and Paul Shadwell. Watch Tuvok give this kid a Rubik's something for every birthday. That just seems like the most Tuvok gift imaginable. End transmission.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.